Hello, and welcome to the very first video of the Fabled Feasts series. My name is Lily, I'm a storyteller, I'm a foodie, and I'm a lover of all things culture. So put those three together and you get Fabled Feasts. Now originally this was meant to be a series of live events in fantastic locations where we would have catered food by culture and stories and enjoy company together. While we can't do this event live anymore, we can try and simulate it via YouTube. So our very first culture today that we will focus on is the culture of China in Australia. There is a long intertwined history between China and Australia of Chinese visiting the mainland and influencing and sharing culture with Aboriginal people, and then in the more recent times of sharing culture and impacting culture amongst the new settlers and the new Australia that we have now. In the Fabled Feast series and in our focus on China, I would like to present three elements because I believe in the magic of three. The first will be a story from the culture, the second an ingredient, and the third a person who is intricately connected to the Chinese culture and the Australian lifestyle now. So in the spirit of what Fabled Feasts was going to be, I would like to encourage you to either cook your favourite Chinese recipe and share that together while you listen to these stories and watch these interviews, or go and purchase some of your favourite local Chinese food as takeaway and support those businesses as they try to survive through this time. I live in northern Illawarra and I have a favourite Chinese restaurant based in Helensburgh, which is Cam Tim. Definitely check them out if you can. When I'm in Wollongong, my favourite Chinese restaurant is Ziggy's House of Noms, which is run by two beautiful people who are in business and life together, Steen and Kevin. And I'd like to introduce you to Steen with the ingredient.
Hi, my name is Steen. I run Ziggy's House of Noms, or Ziggy's Xanadu, and we brewed a tea a couple of years ago called Blue Caterpillar in honour of the Blue Caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland. And the reason we chose Blue Caterpillar for this story is because the Alice stories are incredibly important to me. In the Alice stories, they show a notion of change and transformation. It's also about one of the very few stories that's written where a girl does not have chats about boys, does not talk about fashion, and stands up for herself the entire time and takes everything in her stride. And right now, I think people taking things in their stride and transforming through difficulties is exactly what we need to hear. So we chose this, and we chose the section of Alice, of the Blue Caterpillar, or Advice from a Caterpillar, as a bit of a demonstration, because the tea itself is called Blue Caterpillar. We're the only people who have this actual blend. We import the ingredients ourselves from Thailand, and it's a fairly magical tea, as you'll see. We also have a tiny little bit of bitter lemon juice, and the old idea that if life gives you lemons, make lemonade, well, you can do other things with it. So I'll start with brewing the tea while I read. So hot water into our tea, and as you'll see, the tea will go a lovely bright blue. Let's put it like that and give it a stir occasionally. So, from Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, Advice from a Caterpillar. There was a large mushroom growing near Alice. She stretched herself up on tiptoe and peeped over the edge of the mushroom, and her eyes immediately met those of a large caterpillar that was sitting on top with its arms folded, quietly smoking a hookah, and taking not the slightest bit of notice of her or anything else. The caterpillar and Alice looked at each other for some time in silence, and at last the caterpillar took the hookah out of his mouth and addressed her in a languid, sleepy tone. "Who are you?" said the caterpillar. This was not encouraging opening for a conversation. Alice replied, "I hardly know, sir, just at present. At least I know who I was when I got up this morning. I think I must have changed several times since then." "What do you mean by that? Explain yourself." "Well, I can't explain myself, I'm afraid, sir. Alice said, because I'm not myself, you see. I don't see. I'm afraid I can't put it more clearly, for I can't understand it myself. To begin with, being so many different sizes in a day is very confusing. It isn't, said the caterpillar. Well, perhaps you haven't found it so yet, but perhaps when you turn into a chrysalis and then into a butterfly, I should think you'll feel a little queer, won't you? Well, not a bit, said the caterpillar. Well, perhaps your feelings will be different. All I know is it would feel very queer to me. And who are you? Which brought them back again to the beginning of the conversation. Alice felt a little irritated at the caterpillars making such short remarks, and she drew herself up and said very gravely, I think you ought to tell me who you are first. Why? Well, there's another puzzling question, and Alice could not think of a very good reason. And as the caterpillar seemed to be in a very unpleasant state of mind, she turned away. Come back! The caterpillar called after her. I've something important to say. Well, this sounded promising, certainly. Alice turned and came back. Keep your temper. Is that all? Said Alice, swallowing down her anger as well as she could. No, said the caterpillar. Alice thought she might as well wait, as he had nothing else to do, and perhaps after all it might tell her something worth hearing. For some minutes it puffed away without speaking, and at last it unfolded its arms, took the hookah out of its mouth again, and said, So you think you've changed, do you? I'm afraid I am, sir, said Alice. I can't remember things I used to, and I don't keep the same size for more than 10 minutes altogether. What size do you want to be? It asked. Oh, I'm not particular as to size, Alice hastily replied. Only one doesn't like changing so often, you know. I don't know, said the caterpillar. Alice said nothing. She'd never been so much contradicted in her life before, and she felt that she was losing her temper. Are you content now? Said the caterpillar. Well, I should like to be a little larger, sir. It wouldn't mind, said Alice. 3 inches is such a wretched height to be. It is a very good height indeed, said the caterpillar, angrily rearing itself up upright as it spoke. It was exactly 3 inches high. I'm not used to it, pleaded poor Alice, and she thought of herself, I wish the creatures here weren't so easily offended. You'll get used to it in time, said the caterpillar, and he put the hookah into his mouth and began smoking again. This time Alice waited patiently until it chose to speak again. In a minute or two, the caterpillar took the hookah out of its mouth and yawned once or twice, shook itself, then got down off the mushroom and crawled away in the grass, merely remarking as it went, One side will make you grow taller, the other side will make you grow shorter. One side of what? The other side of what? Thought Alice to herself. Of the mushroom, said the caterpillar, just as he asked aloud, and another moment she was out of sight. So, we now have a beautiful blue tea, which we pour in. And we chose blue caterpillar because in tradition, the caterpillar is quite often done as blue. But if you add the lemon juice or the bitterness of life to the blue and give it a quick stir, it will transform into a beautiful purple butterfly. Because difficulty will always transform you into something beautiful if you allow it to. And it tastes wonderful. Quite my favourite tea.
Now I can attest to how delicious that cup of tea was. The blue pea flower is used in Malay cooking for the colour changing aspect. It's used in Thailand in the modern day as a blue drink served with pandan juice as well, which I want to go there one day and taste. It's cooked in Myanmar as a flour in batter and fried up and served, and it can be used as a decoration flower in salads as well. I did a little bit of research and it turns out that the blue pea flower will grow in most parts of Australia. So I am looking forward to setting aside a little bit of my non-native garden so that I can give that one a shot and see what fun I can have with that ingredient. And for the story component, I turned to Kevin. He told me of a story called The Butterfly Lovers. I'd never heard this story before and it is sensational. The Chinese title of the story, The Butterfly Lovers, is Liang Chu, which is the two surnames put together of the two main characters. It is an epic tale about a defiant, strong-willed woman whose family supports her to go against culture and go and study in the city, and she falls in love with one of her roommates and they develop a beautiful friendship. It's an incredible epic that looks into honor and expectation and love and friendship and duty and respectful behavior and spiritual selves as well, and the essence of all forms of love. And it honors that. It's an incredible story. And the more I research this story, the more I realize that I really can't tell it with any form of respect to the cultural significance. This story in the 1920s was voted as one of the 4 dominant stories, cultural value stories within China. And it's been listed with UNESCO under intangible inheritance as well. So there's no way I can tell this story. I do advise you to go and research and look it up though. It is incredible. There are operas written about it, there is music, there's video stories, books, the characters have their own life. There is a park in China that sets out each of the elements of this story as well. So it is definitely something to go and look into. What I can do is tell you my favorite Chinese story. A long, long time ago, there lived an old farmer and his son who lived alone, and they worked the land with the help of one horse, and they worked hard. Farming is dedicated labour work. Now, it came to pass that one day this horse took off. And the son came running back. He said, "Oh, Dad, we've had so much bad luck. Our horse is gone." And the villagers heard the news and they came back and said, "Oh, what bad luck." But the old man stepped back and he said, "Well, maybe not." People dismissed this answer and kept going with their day, and days and weeks passed until that horse came back. But this time, it was leading a pack of wild horses right into their yard and their farm. And the son came running to his dad saying, "Oh, what good luck." And the villagers came running to the old man saying, "Oh, what good luck." And the old man said, maybe not." They dismissed this comment. And the son was excited. He was so ecstatic. This was definitely good luck. He went out there and he worked those horses and he broke them in, and they had this beautiful array of strong horses. Now, one day the son was out riding one of the new horses that he had just broken in, and he had a terrible fall. The horse landed on his leg. It was broken in multiple places and directions, and he had to be carried back. And came back in and he was like, "Oh, Dad, such bad luck." And his dad's tending to the leg, and people from the village are coming by saying, "Oh, we're so sorry for your bad luck." And the old man said, "Well, maybe not." Now this really frustrated the son. This was definitely bad luck, and his father must have been going crazy. But after a few months, soldiers came recruiting for the National Guard, and they took every able-bodied young man in that village, and they did not take the son, for he was still lame and recovering with his leg. And the son looked up at his dad, and the villagers came by and said, "Oh, what good luck." And the old man said, maybe not. And that's a story that could keep going, and you are welcome to put your ending into it. I think it's a story for these times where we have events come to pass and it's us that put the meaning of luck or not good luck. Now, the third and final part of this series is to introduce you to my Auntie Sally. She's my auntie through marriage. She is my father-in-law's youngest sister.
Yes, my parents came from Guangdong. They were sponsored by a family in Tumut, and I was born there. Then they came to Sydney, and my father, he previously had a shop in Campbell Street, which was Chinatown in those days.
What year is that?
That is the 1940s.
Okay.
Then he spied this wonderful location in 651 George Street, which was opposite Campbell Street. So he bought that shop, and the rest is history regarding the Modern China Cafe. Now, Dad and Norman were the first family, the Pang family, to have a beautiful Chinese frontage, as you will see. All the other cafes in Sydney and in the country were fronted, very plain fronted. But they had the foresight to have these beautiful ornaments imported from China and did a beautiful glass front.
The difference, the Modern China Cafe, do you know how it got its name and why they even thought to have that big decorative front? Where did that come from?
I think it happened because it was a modern aspect of a normal cafe, and all the ornaments was due to Dad's foresight in importing all these ornaments. As there was a white Australian policy and you had to have a business. So the business he started up was an importing, exporting business, and it was to import these beautiful ornaments, Chinese tea, Chinese ginger. That's how it started up.
So the White Australia policy was like through to 72, I think, or 71, maybe even a bit later. So did he keep up that, did he need to have that import business going that whole time?
He did, yes.
So the cafe in its own right and the import business worked together, did they?
Yes.
And that's where all of these ornaments
That's right.
and...
Yes.
Fantastic. That's very clever of them.
Yes.
Had he done food before, or?
I'm not sure, but what he did was he bought out, they didn't call them chefs in those days, they called them Chinese cooks. So he bought them in from China.
Okay.
And they lived traditionally and this was in the 1950s, the cooks and the staff always lived on top of the cafes.
And
So
it was a three-story building.
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. But how much staff would there have been at the Modern China? There was the whole family first,
Yes,
wasn't
and
it?
there was actually, I'm trying to think, that's a good question actually. I think there were about 4 cooks and we had waiters. Yeah, it was quite a good percentage of staff there. In my teenage years with my sisters, going in there and doing the waitressing, there were no frozen foods in those days. The Chinatown to get the produce was behind George Street, and there were huge produce stores. So we would peel carrots and potatoes, peel the prawns. No dishwashing machine. That was after school and in the weekends.
Yeah.
Which we didn't mind. That was just traditional. You helped the family, you helped them, because they were working hard for our education, for our lifestyle.
You're the youngest of the 3
I'm the
sisters,
youngest,
aren't you?
yes.
Yeah.
Traditional for the family member to cook the meals for the staff at the end of the day.
Really?
Yes.
So Anne's job was to cook for all the cooks.
Cooks, that's right.
That's high pressure.
It is.
Is that how you learnt to cook?
No, I learned to cook by what Dad always said to me, to go in the kitchen and just watch the cooks, just watch them, which I did. I used to write it, I even got the original recipe book where I wrote down all the recipes.
Wow.
Yes.
Can I see that?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
How hard was it to get the produce back then?
It wasn't hard at all because the Hay Street, that was the street I was trying to remember, behind George Street, there were huge produce stores there and they used to come in. It was just easy. Big bags, Hessian bags of veggies and fruit. In actual fact, the backyard of Modern China Cafe, we had live chickens there. And I remember that clearly. Then what happened was a transition that you couldn't do that. And so then that was all cleared out. And then we had the first hairdresser that turned into a hairdressing salon.
Okay.
And now there are about 20 hairdressing salons in Chinatown. Yeah. So it was interesting. So I remember that transition clearly. And then Hay Street, the huge produce stores all closed down. They became centres, shopping centres and shops.
When you think back to the Modern China Cafe, what's your strongest memory?
Being a waitress, which I love doing because I like people, and also the fact that it was Laminex tables. It was very busy, and I still remember people from the war coming in with their uniforms. So they must have come off the ship, sailors and people off duty.
And what was the main food that you were serving? Can you remember?
Chop suey, fried rice, sweet and sour pork. They were the favourites.
Yeah. I know Justin still talks about the sweet and sour pork.
They were the favourite ones, iconic Aussies. They love that.
What is chop suey?
Chop suey is fried cabbage, carrots, vegetables, meat, prawns. That's what you call chop suey.
With noodles or with rice?
You can have either or.
Like a chow mein or...
That's it, yes, that's it.
Ah, okay. Would it be soft noodles or the crunchy deep fried?
Both. You could have a variation, soft noodles, deep fried.
And the fried rice, would you have put peas in the fried rice back then?
No.
When did the pea addition happen? I got hungry.
Yeah. The addition is the vagaries of modern life.
So what's traditional fried rice?
Traditional fried rice is the char siu, which is the Chinese pork, the shallots, fried egg, small prawns, and that's a traditional Chinese fried rice.
Yeah.
Well, now anything goes, as you know, in fried rice. They put anything into it.
If you had to think back to what was your favourite thing to eat, what was that?
Well, actually, I really enjoyed the whole steamed fish. That was beautiful. So we had the whole fish steamed, and how that was done was steamed, then lifted out of the wok, and then they have hot oil, sliced shallots and carrots, and then poured over the fish. It's traditional to eat the head and to eat the eyes because the eyes give you good protein and good luck.
And is there a system of who gets to eat the eyes?
Usually the parents, but if your parents say, oh, you can have it.
And is that like if you're the spoiled child of the moment? Was there a bit of a competition between all the children
Well,
about?
not really. No. I think I was the only one that was quite keen to do that. Being out of the mould.
That's excellent. And if you think back to your favourite dessert, what's that?
The favourite dessert is what we're going to have today at lunchtime, the sweet sago dessert, which is really nice. Also light cheese, which are lovely.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember when the cafe was closing down? How old were you then?
I think I must have been in my 20s when that happened. Yes, that was quite sad, of course. But then we diversified, and so it was a good move. We then opened the first food court in Roselands.
How different was that?
It was very different because it was a whole new lifestyle. You only had one cook there and two people serving on the counter.
Wow, that's some real starts. Did you ever talk to our Gung Gung, but your father, about whether he enjoyed it?
No, I didn't actually. That's a good question. No, we just took it that was his business. Our family are there to help him, and we look after them, which we did. And
was he quite traditional in his?
He was actually. He worked really hard, and he worked hard, as I said, for his family. But he loved his garden, so he loved his bonsais, as we know, and his orchids. So he got his outlet by doing a lot of gardening. When he came home, or he usually woke up very early in the morning to do it. So that was good too.
Did you feel like everyone wanted to be there in the cafe helping?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
It was a great, close family unit.
Yeah.
That's our way of thinking. We didn't even think 2 ways we shouldn't be here. We just did it. That's our way of life, yes. I'd just like to say, Lily, thank you very much for bringing out my family's Modern China Cafe. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. It's a pleasure to have you at our home and having a traditional Chinese lunch.
I think it's pretty amazing to have you to talk to and this story and history of the first cafe and that innovation in the cafe restaurant and the Chinese food as it was presented. It sounds like your father actually took, rather than Chinese food, took it and presented a whole range of Chinese culture, the ornamentation, the service, the family. I think that's really beautiful.
I think it's wonderful.
I hope that you enjoyed that interview and all that Auntie Sally offered us in her stories and her smile and experiences. I really appreciate her sharing those with me and hence with you. That is the final piece of the first video of Fabled Feast. I would like to thank Culture Bank for funding Fabled Feast, for believing in this vision. If you have a favourite place, please just hashtag Fabled Feasts and your favourite restaurant and what your favourite meal is, or what meal you shared while watching these videos. That would be kind of cool. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land. I am recording on Dharawal land, and I would like to pay respects to ancestors past, present and future. As an added piece, if this intrigues you about other influences of China in Australia and the world, I can highly recommend the following things to go and look at. Thank you.